This podcast provides information to help esports professionals identify and approach legal problems. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. Legal information is not the same as legal advice, which is an application of law to a party's specific set of circumstances.
You should not and are not authorized to use this podcast as a source of legal advice. And the information in this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship between the Law of Esports Podcast, any of the lawyers or affiliates of the podcast, and any consumer of this podcast.
Welcome to the Law of Esports Podcast, the #1 podcast that discusses legal issues as they relate to the world of esports. My name is Jake Hicks, and I represent teams, leagues, and organizations.
And my name is Nefi Lopez, and I represent players, streamers, and personalities.
And today we have an amazing episode for you. It's a little bit different episode than what we usually do. There's not going to be much legal analysis in this episode, but instead we're going to give you an update as to what we've been up to, the way we've been really enjoying the world of esports over the past few weeks, and some really cool developments in the works for the future of the podcast. And we're also bringing this to you with a new podcast software that we're really excited about. We're testing it out for this episode as well. So we wanted to make this more of an update episode. And that way, if we have any issues, it's a little bit easier for us to re-record without going through all the legal analysis and checking ourselves over and over again, as we tend to obsessively do whenever we have a more analytical episode.
Yeah, so this is going to be a little different. This is basically going to be a podcast version of a VOD, right? We're gonna sort of give you an audio description of the last couple of weeks, and it's been a great time. So, wow, where do we begin? The last couple of
Let's
weeks.
begin with the OpTic Major.
It's been wild, man. The fact that we were there,
It's been so awesome.
It's been great, and we fortunately have been lucky enough to have been invited over by Team Envy, that happens to be a part of, or the other way around, OpTic happens to be a part of Team Envy. We were invited to attend the OpTic Major. So, Jake, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so we attended the OpTic Major, which at this point was, a few weeks ago, but we've been talking to Team Envy and Team OpTic really for a long time, but we really haven't been in front of them in person since COVID. I mean, either of us, either you on the player side or me on the team side. And there's been some turnover within that industry. There's also been a merger between OpTic and Envy, and we haven't really gotten to speak with any of those executives or anyone since COVID kind of began. And so I have to give a big shout out. Nefi joined me in shouting out Mr. Trent Knox. He is an esports professional. He is an outstanding individual. He runs the Esports Business Network podcast, EBN. We've actually been featured on that before as esports lawyers. But he was also considering going. He couldn't make it last minute. But so he also helped us get in with the right people that are doing event management over there, because that stadium was recently acquired by Team Envy. They have a whole new event management group that is exceptionally talented that we had not met yet. And so he helped us get in contact with those individuals who are also incredible. Kobe Carter, Justin Rojas, the president and COO of Envy, Mr. Jeff Moore, all really cool people that we got to hang out with and meet and talk to. But Trent Knox, thank you very much, man. If you guys have an opportunity, please go check out the Esports Business Network podcast, EBN. You can just type that into Spotify and give a listen, because he has really cool episodes, including this one that features Jake and Nefi, or Nefi and Jake.
Best
you
episode.
Guys listen to that one.
Yeah. And we could have gone in a lot longer, but absolutely, Jake. I'm going to echo what you're saying. Huge shout out to Trent for being such a great resource, and for making that connection. And along with listening to him, go follow him on all social media accounts: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, the Esports Business Network. So enough talking about Trent. We give credit where credit is due, and Trent, you're the man. So shout out to you. And with that being said, though, how exciting it was to be a part of the very first Call of Duty League major of the season
Oh my gosh,
since
yes.
COVID started. Really, I mean, it's been a couple of years since an event like this has been hosted, and it just so happened to be that OpTic Texas, that is stationed in Dallas, Texas, happened to be the very first organization to host a home tournament. And man, was it wild! I mean, the organization itself did such a fantastic job in planning this event. The way it came together, the amount of planning that went into it, I can only imagine how difficult it was to have such a large tournament go so smoothly. I mean,
Yeah, well, there was also, I mean, they also were able to maintain the COVID bubble for players, but outside of that, for the spectators, you had to wear masks inside. But other than that, I mean, they played by the rules and created an outstanding event. Because if you, I know Nefi, I know you know this, man, but for everyone else listening, I mean, the CDL had a kickoff event at that same stadium 6 weeks ago, or 6 weeks prior to this one, but it was much more restricted, where pretty much the entire thing was a bubble. And so you didn't have a crowd there. There wasn't much crowd noise. I think the casters, I think they appeared like virtually on green screen again, like they did at Champs last year, and it was kind of weird. So the kickoff event wasn't nearly as cool. This was, I mean, 2,000 people. They probably could have fit another 500 in there if they really wanted to. Then it didn't for a few reasons we're going to talk about in terms of the seating structure. But man, and the professionals they have over there again. Justin Rojas as their VP of events, and then Jeff Moore, the president and COO, who not only put on an outstanding event for the Major One winners in OpTic Texas, but also the rest of the CDL. There were people lined up out the door and hours before the doors open every day. And the other cool thing is that Jeff was able to sit and talk with Nefi and I for it was supposed to be for about 15 to 30 minutes, and it ended up being about 3 hours.
3 hours the first night. I mean, he essentially took us under his wing for the entirety of the event. I mean, the guy was just such a fantastic host. And, and obviously when somebody like that's handling such a large event, not only is he extremely busy and, he's got other people to take care of, he was very, very welcoming to us. And, we saw him enough to where, he was clearly talking to some very important people throughout the event, ensuring that all the players are doing what they're supposed to be doing, making sure just things are going smoothly. And then, he would come and kind of hang out with us a little bit, which was a little mind blowing for us. Cause we know how much planning and the logistical nightmare that it is to have a massive tournament during a pandemic. And, we're just our hats off to him. And, along with Jeff, obviously he's got a fantastic supporting cast like Justin, who, we met for the first time that weekend. Him along with Jeff was also, for how busy he was, whenever he saw us, he took the time, he spoke to us, we were able to get some quick questions in. And I mean, the guy,
well, and well, I was gonna say, and don't forget, they just acquired that stadium from the city of Arlington, which was a big capital expenditure. They had to raise money to do. So they also had investors there where they were showing off the product of their investment. And so Jeff would talk to us, then talk to some of their investors, talk to some other executives and high-ranking esports individuals. And it was really cool. I think, I think for the first time in our careers to be put in that same echelon.
right.
I feel like we've been going after this for years, and to be put in that same group was really, really cool. And it was really only because of the professionalism of the individuals that were running that event.
Right. And
including Jeff and Justin, everybody.
And to be fair, we're typically involved in communication with these people, but we're usually sort of in the background working. It's very, it was sort of a unique experience for Jake and myself because, we exchange emails, we have business conversations, discussions, either on the phone and it's never to come in and enjoy an event like we were able to do this weekend. This was really not so much work, but more pleasure. The fact that we were invited, we were not going to pass up on the offer. We came in And I mean, it was such a great event. So for those of you guys that don't know, this event was held at the Esports Stadium in Arlington, Texas, which is a small town right outside of Dallas. I mean, it's basically Dallas. And it's
Well, and the city of Arlington is also where the Dallas Cowboys have their stadium.
right.
It's also where the Texas Rangers have their stadium.
It's all
It's
walking
basically
distance.
it's a big professional stadium park, and the city of Arlington contributed to each one of those stadiums.
Right.
So the city of Arlington was convinced at some point to build an esports stadium, and I think it's the biggest stadium that's solely dedicated to esports in North America.
Yeah.
It's also one of the nicest esports facilities in North America.
Yeah. I mean, top of the line equipment. Made it very, very easy and enjoyable to be there and be able to watch the event. And so, and this particular tournament was the OpTic Major was 4 days? It was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. And I mean, it's just, you could tell that people were very excited to be there. I remember the first day, Jake and I, unfortunately, were not able to make it on Thursday, but whenever we did go, when was our first day? Was it Friday or was it Saturday?
The first day was Friday night. So
Yeah.
we got there Friday in the last like couple of matches for the night because they had played until about 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So we got there in the last couple of matches, and it was awesome. It was pretty packed. But again, Saturday, first of all, you had Saturday, which is the day that most people could probably go if they were going for one day. But then you also had OpTic versus FaZe matching up on Saturday, which by the grace of the Call of Duty gods happened again on Sunday. And that atmosphere, Rambo Ray said in the OpTic podcast, it was the most electric atmosphere he's ever felt crowd-wise at a Call of Duty event. And I've been watching Call of Duty for a long, long time, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Absolutely.
It was, oh my gosh, it was incredible.
Dude, it was crazy. I mean, we had people coming in from all over the country. Thursday and Friday, there was a lot of people there, but, obviously provided the schedule that people work. And then the fact that OpTic and FaZe were not going to play against each other until Saturday. Saturday and Sunday really were like the main days of the tournament. I'm not saying that the other 2 days weren't exciting, just we saw a massive influx of people that came in from out of town and finally flew in on Friday and were able to go on Saturday. I mean, Jake and I got up early in the morning. We stayed at the hotel right across the street, literally walking distance. And we showed up to the stadium, what was it, like an hour before it formally opened to everybody. And there was just a line around the entire building with people just, I mean, extremely excited to be there. And I mean, it was such a breath of fresh air because, it's been so many years since an event like this has been held, and really to see that that the excitement and the hype didn't really fade. As a matter of fact, it sort of built up to this particular event. And I mean, we fortunately were able to get there. We were treated especially, we were considered invited guests and media, so we didn't have to wait in the long line, fortunately, like everybody else.
We were also kind of VIPs. In a way.
Yeah.
Are we going to post the video of this?
Possibly.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to show.
In case we do.
You get lanyards at these events, and they're always kind of cool. We have a couple of them from, I guess, years and years ago. But so we have one that says invited guests. I guess my light's too bright.
Yeah.
So we have one that says invited guests. And then we have this little guy that's metal. You can probably hopefully hear that. For VIPs, and these are just like, I mean, this is the level of thought and detail that went into this. Is even the lanyards they give you all say something special. They all are, I mean, the VIP ones are metal. They have bronze ones for players and other like team owners and stuff that they would give away at the event in between matches and stuff. And it's so cool to get stuff like this that's specific to the event. And it's not just some piece of merch that you can buy, which is also cool, I guess. But it was, I mean, every little detail was thought of to make this a really cool in-person experience.
Right. And so, I'm sure you guys are asking. So there were essentially 4 tiers of people that came to this event, right? It was general admission, which, they had day passes.
4 tiers of tickets you could buy.
Right. Well, technically 3 that you could buy and 1 that you can't really buy, since one of them is for like family and friends and
right.
creators. And so The main one was obviously general admission. You can buy either single day tickets or the full weekend. Extremely affordable, by the way, and just my want to tip my hat to the guys at OpTic for working so hard to not just plan a great event, but make it extremely affordable and accessible to anybody that wanted to go, regardless of age, regardless of income. This was an extremely affordable event to go to, and it was worth every single penny. So you had general admission, and then if you wanted to level it up a little bit, you can go what they call like the weekend reserve or the reserve seating, which is not quite VIP, but you had assigned seating. And so you would pay just a couple of dollars more. You get to select your seat for the whole weekend. You don't have to, kind of duke it out, get there early to get the best seats. And then you had VIP, which was at the very front. Now, along with getting a VIP seating, which is the very front, close to the players, close to the stage, you also got that really, really sweet metal badge that Jake was just showing us a few minutes ago. And then lastly, the other tier, which is invited guests, which was Jake and myself. And then the invited guests were for media, which, is not necessarily a ton. There's a very small group of media members that at least Jake and I noticed. And then obviously friends and family. So friends and family of the players, along with
invited guests also. Yeah, I must say invited guests also included content creators
that were
absolutely.
And there were a lot of guys and girls that came in from their respective organizations like 100 Thieves, FaZe, OpTic, obviously. The Mutineers.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of guys and girls from around the country came to support their teammates. And they were sort of off to the side and towards the front and middle. So kind of a little bit away, separated from everybody else, but still accessible. You can literally sit next to them and they'd be within arm's reach if you wanted. It was a very, very unique way of organizing a room. And
and from the event management perspective, so tickets are available right now for sale. We're recording this on March 16th. Tickets are available for sale for Major 2 for the Minnesota Rocker at the Mystic Lake Casino outside of Minnesota, and they don't have a tiered seating structure. They're just doing all general admission, and then if you're media or a player, then obviously you get a little bit different credentials. And so, we interviewed Jeff for a little bit, and we have audio of that, and I'm looking at Nefi because as our tech guru, we have to figure out if we can utilize that audio or if there's too much ambient noise, and we're trying to figure that out, or if we have to re-interview Jeff again. But in discussing that, in event management, it was really important for them to create a value proposition in having these events over and over again. And one of the ways they could do that is by selling these tiered tickets. And if you make someone a VIP, they want to feel a little bit special, especially if they're paying, 3 times the price of a general admission ticket. And so I thought it was a really cool way of doing it. The VIP, then the reserve seating, and then kind of general admission. Because it does give a value proposition to kind of each level of seat.
Right.
And it's a really cool way to organize the event. And again, I think it was a great way to showcase how you can utilize esports for in-person events, and the fear that since COVID, that esports has been relegated to being merely an online presence, and it's been quote unquote proven it can survive just online, is complete nonsense. Right. And that in-person events are important. There's a unique value proposition there. And there's also a little bit of importance in being able to run and control your own venue. And as of right now, Envy is the only one that really has one, especially in the Call of Duty scene. But that's also probably going to be another episode, is venue acquisition and use.
Yeah.
So, but I thought it was really cool because, the Rocker are just doing all general admission.
Right.
So
and
we'll see how it goes.
Most people, whenever they host these tournaments, and that was another unique thing that Jake and I realized or noticed, was that OpTic was very clever and very smart in the way that they did this tiered system. For those of you guys that don't understand, the way they have it organized is basically like an airplane, right? Whenever you're going and you're flying somewhere, you have the option of either going first class, getting the business preferred, right, where you're sitting towards the front, not first class front, but you're sitting towards the front. You have a little more leg space, and then you've got just general cabin, also known as what do they call it? Just coach, basically.
Economy coach,
yeah,
whatever.
Economy. And it was literally almost like you're in a giant airplane. VIPs are seated towards the front. They get their cool badges. They get towards the front of the plane. They're one of the first ones that get in. If you had a VIP pass, you also got early admission to the stadium, which makes a huge difference. If you want to get in there, you want to buy your OpTic jerseys, which sold out immediately. If you have a VIP pass, they were allowed into the stadium a little bit earlier, which I think is a huge perk of this tiered system. Is you get a little early admission and you're kind of guaranteed the merch, which sold like hotcakes. We actually spent several $100s on merch whenever we were there, just to sort of reminisce of this awesome experience we had. And
dude, I'm a unashamed OpTic fanboy. I have been for since 2012. And so yeah, I did buy some OpTic merch. It definitely happened.
And to be fair though, we do stand a lot of different organizations. We don't want to sound like we favor one over the other, right? As esports, we're neutral. So just want to clear the record. Although we do love OpTic, there's a thing to be said about being the home team. We're from Texas. They're from Texas. We sort of gravitate towards our own. But
on Halo Infinite, if you see me on Halo Infinite Ranked Arena, I do have a Cloud9 skin. So just I got a C9 skin on the BR. So it's out there. I bought it and paid for it. So it's there. It exists.
Yeah.
But yeah. But the other thing too is that, I think on top of value proposition, and the reason why I think venue acquisition is going to be so important coming up is because, we said that OpTic and FaZe were the big matchup of the weekend on Saturday. But people that weren't there need to know that match didn't happen until 2 p.m. And there was a match that was played before that. And the venue opened at around noon. And so, hours before that match, people were still lined up around the corner just to get inside the venue. It was about being there. Obviously, being there for the OpTic FaZe matchup was awesome. But it wasn't like everyone showed up just for that match and then everyone left.
Right.
The value proposition was sustainable throughout the entire weekend. And a ton of people were there throughout the entire weekend.
Yeah.
And so I think that was awesome to see for the industry. Yeah. And certainly we're really happy for that, because as long as esports orgs and leagues are making money, they can pay our legal fees.
Yeah.
And so it was great to see.
And discussing logistics, I mean, this could be an event that could go wrong very quickly. And fortunately though, that didn't happen in this particular event. I mean, things were very smooth. You would walk in, obviously we had security there that would, check everybody coming in. This Call of Duty League, along with, I think, the event center, require everybody to have a face mask. It was strictly enforced, but it wasn't so much so to where you had people hovering around and yelling at people to put on their face masks. I mean, it was clear that that they were enforcing it, but weren't making it comfortable.
Yeah, it wasn't super uncomfortable, and it was also still a big learning experience for the CDL, and I think for esports going forward, as long as they're in their current state. And there's a few security things that we noticed that were really interesting. Some is still a learning process, and some is, I think, things that we have to get used to. The first one is that within those 3 tiers of seats, people were moving back and forth between them a little too much, because in between matches, people will leave their seats, other people will go try and claim them. And so on like that Saturday, the event leadership decided to add a little additional security, whether that was like ropes in between the sections or, little additional people to watch and make sure you're sitting in your right section.
Right.
And that wasn't a big deal, and it was fixed right away. The second thing of the 3 things, the second thing was that during search and destroy, which is like CSGO, like anything else in Call of Duty, there's a bomb you have to plant, and then the other side has to defuse it, right? Sometimes a team can plant the bomb, and the other team can start defusing before killing other players. And that's what we've called a ninja defuse or a secret defuse. The problem is that the players on the stage were not in like a little soundproof cage. They had noise canceling headphones on, but those can only do so much when there's 2,000 people yelling. And one of the issues that came up is that when one team was trying to ninja defuse a bomb secretly, the crowd would start making noise, which can tip off the bomb planting team and have some impact on the integrity of the outcome of that match.
Right. Yeah. It makes it
and
unfair.
So it makes it a little bit unfair, especially for whatever home team you're on. I think the really interesting part is, you have to consider, is having home fair advantage and unfair advantage. I think in most sports it's not, because people are making so much noise you can't really hear, and I guess it throws you off. I think in Call of Duty it's a little bit different, because you could have someone place a huge bet, because the venues are still relatively small, right? 2,000 people is a pretty small pro sports venue. You could have someone place a huge bet on an S&D game and then go and just yell as loud as they can that they're defusing, and while that person might get kicked out, they could still impact the integrity of the game.
Right.
So Hastro tweeted about it, the casters mentioned it, and then Hex had to come out and say, look guys, if someone's diffusing, don't say anything. You have to be quiet. If you're cheering, it needs to be for a kill or a win, but not just for...
Not to tip them off, basically.
Not to tip a diffuse. Yeah. And so that was the second thing. And I don't know how that gets fixed, other than people just telling people to be quiet.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I thought was really interesting, that Nefi and I talked to a bunch of people about, was that, somewhere around the stadium, in an undisclosed location, at an undisclosed place, there's a Call of Duty server right next to the game being played. And that's in order to make it hopefully crash less, to have the lowest amount of ping time and all those things. The game still crashed twice. And they had to replay and delay matches twice.
I think it may have happened a little bit more than twice. They may have been 3 or 4 times. But there was 2 major times where there was a lot of downtime.
Yeah, and it really kind of sucked. And there was also in the championship series, Arcades and Abizi had some lag in that control. There was a control match where OpTic had a big comeback, and they claimed it was because of some lag, so they had to replay that match, which was kind of a bummer for everyone in the live audience, and we thought people were going to riot because they were taking away OpTic's big comeback. OpTic still won, so it didn't really damage the integrity of the thing, but it still left a bad taste in people's mouths that someone had lag, which it's no fault of the players at all. And the CDL had to determine what they could do within their rules to try and fix that issue once it already happened. And I think one of the interesting things is that I think we're going to see that more and more now that we're on the games as a service model, because to even play a local area network game, you still have to connect to the Call of Duty servers, right? Because that's how the game is hosted. Unless Activision builds a competition-specific version of the game to be on specific PCs so they can LAN up and play one single game on a completely closed-loop network, you still have to connect to a Call of Duty server. And so we don't know why the crashes happened, but they did.
Yeah.
And I also don't know how that really gets fixed on the league side. I think that's on the Activision side. Hopefully they figure out what happened and fix it. But I don't know. Nefi, those are the 3 things I noticed. I don't know if you saw anything else or if you have any feelings on those.
No. I think those are probably the 3 bigger issues. And, another thing that makes a big difference is the fact that these teams are, they have the people that make these decisions there. They're present, they're available, and everything is fluid, right? They saw that there was an issue and they got their heads together and resolved it the next day. They saw that there was an issue with people that weren't VIP, that were rushing to the front of the stage, outside of the area where they were supposed to be. And what they did was they took swift action and, up security to make sure that doesn't happen on the day that they were supposed to be present. In other words, there's typically other people that have rules and plans, and they will, no matter what, they're going to keep them the same way and not make any changes. And oftentimes that could be to their detriment. And that just, didn't happen here. In other words, the company or the people that were planning this did a fantastic job in making changes that were better for everybody. The only other complaint I would have is probably the concessions. I think they could do a little bit of a better job mixing it up a little bit. But outside of that, the tournament itself was quite smooth. I literally
Nefi's a big foodie.
Yeah,
Nefi's a big foodie.
Yeah.
Nefi and I have had some great meals in some great places. And I know that Nefi is a major, if you want to win Nefi's heart or his business, make sure your concessions are on point.
Yeah. And so, I mean, which is a good, it's a good problem to have. I mean, we were still there, we were spending money, but
so yeah. And I think, three things that I'm proud of now that I complained about three things. I think three things I'm really proud of and my takeaways from that event are one, I'm really proud of the Call of Duty League fan base. I mean, they were given an opportunity to show there's value in in-person events and to show that people can be charismatic and have a great time without any major problems happening. And they did. They showed up. They did it the right way. There was that issue with Ninja Diffuses, but whatever. Outside of that, they paid their money. They showed up way ahead of time. They were cheering. Everyone was awesome. Really, really cool. And cheering for every single team. That For the Queen chant for London Royal Ravens, the For the Queen, For the Queen that was incredible. Yeah. And so I'm really proud of the fan base around Call of Duty. I guess the second thing I'm actually really proud of is the league. So, the league is different from Activision and Treyarch as publishers. The league has no control over whether a game crashes or not. I mean, they can't go in and fix the game code. They probably have no one on the staff that even knows the game code, right? These are league people. The GM of the league is from the NFL. She's not from Activision Blizzard. And so, I mean, I guess she is now, but they hired her from the NFL. And so it's just people that manage the Call of Duty League, and they gave a huge amount of freedom to Jeff, the president of Envy, and to Justin, their VP of events, to be able to structure this event in a way that made them as successful as they could be with the information they had. So they let them stagger the seats, sell different tickets for different days, determine how the seats were located, where the broadcast station was. I mean, they gave them a pretty wide swath of freedom to put on this event. And this leads me to the third thing that I'm super proud of the major, which was Envy and OpTic Texas absolutely crushing it. I know they're going to have some takeaways, as we talked to Jeff, and as he calls it, these peak on peak method, where you take the things that were most successful and you push those things harder. So I know the next event's going to be even more incredible. And if you have the opportunity, you should definitely catch the next event that happens at the Arlington Esports Stadium, no matter what it is, CSGO, Valorant, Call of Duty. But yeah, I mean, they were given the freedom to do it, and they absolutely crushed it. It was an incredible event. And I think it set a great standard for all of the following majors going forward in Minnesota, New York, and Toronto. So really looking forward to the other events, and hopefully they were able to take a page out of this book and hopefully get some of those things to repeat themselves.
Yeah. But putting the event aside, another huge perk of going to these events, at least on the viewer standpoint, was that you also get to meet a lot of great content creators. Whenever Jake and I went, we were lucky enough to run into some, I guess you can call them superstars, some larger content creators, and we're going to shut them out real quick. One of the ones that was absolutely the nicest to us whenever we met her is Face Butters, Noisy Butters, I think on Instagram, on Twitter. I mean, she was such a delightful person to meet. We actually met her and OpTic Hitch at the same time, who was the MC of the event and did a fantastic job along with Team Summertime. I'm sure Jake has got a lot to say about those guys and the casters as well that did such a fantastic job, casting the event. But, just a quick shout out to Noisy Butters, FaZe Butters, who, I mean, was just extremely nice to us and, didn't shy away from obviously us being esports lawyers, being podcasters, and, was very, very open to not just talking to us there, but talking to us in the future. And I just want to give her a huge shout out to anybody listening, to our followers. Make sure you guys go check her out. Noisy Butters is her handle on across all platforms, if I'm not mistaken, with the exception of maybe Twitch. I think her might be different on Twitch.
I think she's Noisy Butters on Twitch too.
Okay. So just across all,
I think she's
extremely nice. And, we might be hearing from her again, if her schedule permits it. And then
Butters was really cool. Yeah. So Butters was awesome. Shout out Butters, little Noisy Butters. just 4 feet 11 inches of pure badass. Really, really cool. So I also have a tweet that I put out after the event. At this point, it has 1 like from Nefi. Thank you, bro. Talking about how when you're in person, if you're watching the CDL events on stream, then in between matches, it just shows kind of like either an advertisement or like a little cut up replay of the previous match and gives you a countdown timer for the next match. But if you're there in person, the event had to figure out what to do with the people that are in there to keep them entertained, because not everyone's going to go out and buy concessions. You got to kind of keep people in their seats, or at least have something kind of fun to do while they're in their seats. And so, Team Summertime, freaking George, Blake, and Hitch did little games, trivia, chants, other things like that in between each of these breaks, which weren't just in between matches, but in between maps as well, within the same series. And so you got to think that was about 10 hours every day that these guys were sticking around, running out and doing pieces of content and segments for the entire match just to make it more entertaining for the people that were there in person. And I thought they did a great job. I thought they carried some of the entertainment aspects of the event, and I thought they made it really, really cool for people to be there in person. I hope that, I don't know who they have in Minnesota at the Rocker. I hope Midnight figures out someone to create content for those little in-between pieces. But
I think that's such a great addition. Having an MC.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Dude, hyping the crowd up before the games, in between the games, during the breaks, keeping the crowd, interacting with them and keeping them involved.
It was cool as hell, man.
I think it's such a great model. Hats off to OpTic for designing it that way and having them come. It'd be cool to see every team kind of have their own person, but I think Hitch actually put out a tweet and said that, he's up for hire. I think he said $20,000 per event or something like that. I don't know how serious he was or not.
We chatted with him on, was that Saturday or Sunday that we chatted with him?
It was Saturday.
So we chatted with him on Saturday, and he still had another day left. And he's like, bro, I am tired. And we were like, yeah, I bet. And then he went and did another 3-minute segment and crushed it, and then kept going the rest of the time. So it was really, really cool. But yeah, I put out a tweet. Thank you, Nefi, for liking it. If anyone else wants to go check out our Twitter, the Law of Esports on Twitter.
Yeah.
But go
drop a follow.
Yeah. And so I think that was a pretty great, the major was awesome. Again, thank you to, Justin Rojas, Jeff Moore, Colby Carter, and then also Trent Knox over at EBN for helping all of that come together, at least for the Law of Esports team.
Right.
And then, in continuing our relationship with OpTic and Team Envy, that's starting to happen more and more since COVID because they're in Texas. We also went to another really cool event.
Yeah. This past weekend, we went to South by Southwest. And one of the things is Team Envy and OpTic, Jeff, Justin. Those guys were extremely gracious enough to keep us involved. I think once, we kind of hit it off at the major. Jeff is, the guy's got an open door policy. Anything that we ever need, I have no hesitation of reaching out to him, shooting him a text message. The guy is he's such a top notch guy as far as, him keeping the door open and helping people like Jake and myself out as far as, building connections. They were gracious enough to invite us to their event that OpTic Texas hosted at South by Southwest, where them, along with their large corporate sponsors, a ton of their content creators, some of the other professionals in the field, and the guys that are involved professionally and on the corporate sponsorship type. They were just all in this one very, very intimate event. And it also happened to be that OpTic Texas won the major that they were hosting. And so it was sort of a combined with a celebration of that win. It was awesome. The food was great. The drinks were flowing. They had a DJ with the Call of Duty replays in the background. There was all kinds of people there. We met, Nick Merck's manager, and, we met a lot of other talent managers. We met, other lawyers that were there. Shout out to my buddy AJ Jamil, who works over at ESG. We ran into him there. It was fantastic seeing him again. He's another Texas lawyer. Shout out to him and shout out to his friend Christina, who we met there. She was another non-esports related person, but is there supporting her friend AJ. It was fantastic talking to you as well. She's a very interesting person. And then other creators, people that are devs, people that work for Blizzard or Activision. They were there, and it was just such a great experience. And I'm sure, Jake, you've got your take on this. I mean, we made
Oh, dude,
relationships with some of these guys. It's just it's sort of the curtain kind of comes down, and everybody that are there are clearly people that are related to the organization. And so a lot of these folks that typically you wouldn't see or you wouldn't meet, they're there with their guard down, which makes a great opportunity to really talk to them, get to know them, build relationships.
It was really cool. So Nefi is a guy that represents players and streamers and stuff. I don't really do that much. I think the most I've done is talking to organizations that collectively represent streamers. And so talking to guys that I watch on a regular basis, like Bobby Poff or other guys I'm a big fan of, Roger, OpTic's executive producer of content, was really, really cool. I was fanboying a little bit just because I have a lot of respect for those people and the things they do and the way that they have created a niche for themselves within this esports space. Kind of the same thing that we've done on the legal end, they're doing from the content end. So it was really cool to meet those guys. They were all super cool. Could not have been nicer. We chatted for a while. Even though, we do very different things within the space, it was still awesome. And then we also met another content creator that I have watched some, and he's absolutely blown up in the past few years, or in the past year, I guess. And that's OpTic. Is it Sebas?
OpTic Sebas. Yeah, man. I'm glad.
It's Sebastian, but it's Sebas.
Yeah,
right?
and I'm glad you bring him up. It was my first time meeting him. I've seen some of his stuff after really getting to know him a little bit better. The guy is a hell of a Warzone player. And as an Hispanic, person, as a Latino, the dude is, he's out there playing with James. He's out there playing with Chicharito. The dude, he's out there doing big things. If you guys, just look him up, follow him on Twitch, follow him on YouTube. Him and Bobby Poff, actually, I'm going to shout particularly those two guys out. On the content creator side, we also got a good chance to talk to Hilton. Yep. I'll talk about him in a little bit. But Sebas and Bobby Poff were by far my favorite people that we met, not just over at the major, but at this particular event. Those guys really told us a little bit about themselves. We got to know them on a personal level, and Sebas in particular, man, quickly rose to be one of my favorite content creators that I've ever played. Obviously, I don't work with him on a professional level, but just from meeting him on a personal level, absolutely a brilliant guy, extremely humble. I also had the pleasure of meeting his girlfriend, who was absolutely the sweetest person. It was amazing to meet those guys, get to know them a little bit. And, Sebas, huge shout out to you, man, if you're listening. It was a pleasure meeting.
He does bilingual streams too, right?
Yeah, dude. And he's a Colombian streamer, has a massive following of Latino people, speaking. As a matter of fact, thanks to Sebas, we created our TikTok. And in honor of him, we are following one person right now, and that's him. And we're doing that just to let everybody know that we stand Sebas, because he convinced me. He's like, dude, a lot of my following, I think he said he had, in two of his accounts, like over 2 million followers. And that's where he gets a lot of his interaction. A lot of his popularity are from TikTok.
Well, and I'm really glad that he's around too, because if you saw on our Instagram today, or if you looked at Jake Lucky's Twitter, I know from knowing Nefi and being around in the industry that Gears of War is a massive title in Mexican esports and in Spanish speaking esports. And now apparently, as of today, they're going to wind down operations. And so, Spanish speaking fans of esports are going to have to turn somewhere else. Hopefully, guys like Sebas and guys like that have bilingual streams or Spanish speaking streams can capture some of those guys' hearts and bring them into a new title as Gears of War gets kind of phased out.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just huge shout out to Sebas. He gave us a little bit. We don't want to give you too much detail because we're hoping to reserve that, which, we're going to talk about the future of the podcast in a little bit. But huge shout out to Sebas. Huge shout out to Bobby Poff. Unfortunately, I think they canceled his flight the next day. So I'm sure, he's probably mad at Texas a little bit. But he was such a.
Well, he may end up coming back. I know. I talked to him and his girlfriend for a while, and his girlfriend still lives down here in Houston somewhere. And so he's gonna help her move back up to Dallas or something at some point.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we'll get to hang out here,
Bobby, if you're listening to this, give us a shout if you're ever in Houston, man. Same thing with Bobby. I wasn't as big of a fan as you were, Jake. But after meeting him, I looked at his content. I mean, the dude is freaking hilarious, dude. He is so funny. Whenever he's really focused on playing, he just makes ridiculous faces, and I love it. And the hot mic
the way he
moments,
just yells out.
Dude.
He just so yells
funny,
out.
So funny.
The subscription gifters just get a shriek of freaking.
I love it.
Of joy out of him. Yeah. No, he's over the top, and I love it so much. Just entertaining people, but people that are creating content for an established brand in OpTic, and that are really creating people and bringing them together to move the industry forward.
Yeah.
And so we love this industry. We want it to be strong and healthy, and everyone that moves it forward has a lot of respect from us.
Yep.
And on top of that, speaking of, that South by Southwest event was really cool, really well done. And once again, a great event by Justin Rojas and the event team at Team Envy.
Yeah. And not just Team Envy, by the way. There was also a joint effort by Team Envy, OpTic, and Razer, who was one of their new corporate sponsors.
Right, yeah.
They gave out a lot of really cool swag. And so shout out to those guys. And so, we met some content creators, and then just another quick shout out, since, this is more of a personal episode for us. Another really nice guy that we met, and an extremely important person to the Envy organization is this young guy named Hilton, who is very involved. He's one of their larger, investors. Another extremely nice guy came, talked to us, spent some time with us.
Well, he's also OpTic's vibe coordinator.
Yeah.
And so, he was cool. So he was at the major. He's at pretty much every OpTic event that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
At least the Call of Duty events. And another super, super cool guy, and a guy that has been around esports for a long time, and really on the business side. And we need more people like that. And he is a great flag carrier for that movement, because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and he's influential in the business world, and he's invested in the esports. And so people like that are people that you want to have around, is people that are willing to, for lack of better words, put your money where your mouth is. I mean, this guy is passionate, and he's been supportive, both with his time and financially into the esports world. And as professionals in the esports, it would be impossible without people like him. And so shout out to Hilton, and, we hope to see you soon again, buddy.
Yeah, dude, Hilton was also another super, super cool guy just to talk and hang out with. Like everyone in the space. That's one of the reasons why we love it so much, and we want to be around it as much as possible, is because everyone in it is just cool to hang out with for the most part, but it's also fascinating. And so we've been going for about 48 minutes now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where this show is going.
Yeah.
So as always, we are going to continue doing our analytical podcast. We're going to analyze issues. We're going to analyze, the terms of service of, the Twitch partnership and affiliate deals as they relate to Dr. Disrespect. We're going to analyze venue acquisition in esports, why it's important to esports teams, and how it can affect you as a player or esports industry professional. But we're also going to begin coordinating, now that we have this online podcast software and everything ready to go. Nefi has had a great idea, and I think it's awesome. I'm in full support of it. I think it's going to be great.
Okay.
What is it?
So we're going to start a new series. Whenever Jake and I first started this podcast, we kind of wanted to take what the happenings in the esports world, kind of give it the litigators, right, the trial lawyers take on it, analyze it, and dumb it down for everybody. And when I say dumb it down, I don't mean that in an offensive way, but simplify it so anybody can understand. And with that, though, we figured that one of the key things about our podcast, which, right, the purpose of it is to educate people, is that obviously we can talk about whatever we want in our experience as much as we want. But I think the key things is getting the information directly from the source. Okay. And so we're coming out with a series that we're calling it the Pro Ops series, right? Instead of like Spec Ops, we got the Pro Ops, where we're going to have professionals come as guests on our podcast. And that's going to be content creators, right? And not just content creators, but also professionals in the esports world. So we're going to have executives. We're going to have people that are, in charge of planning events, people in charge of ticketing, people, on the talent side, talent managers, along with other esports legal professionals. We're going to have other lawyers come on the podcast and, kind of give us a little bit more of their experience with the esports world. Because regardless of what I have done, regardless of what Jake has done, esports is still fresh enough to where, I haven't experienced everything. I haven't dealt with everything. I've got quite a bit of experience dealing with different kinds of situations. So has Jake, but there are guys out there, both older and younger, that have had other experiences. And that again, that's on the legal side. But one of the key things is we want to bring on people that you guys will get a benefit of listening to, right? And we're going to try to obviously make it as exciting as possible, right? Whenever you're listening to Ticket Guy, you're like, oh, why do I care about that? And I get that, but those guys have so much information and have so much to teach us that, we want to hear them out. Obviously, having some big time, content creator, streamer come talk to us is going to be a huge treat, because we're going to hear about their background. We're going to hear about their past. We're going to hear about how they came to become professional video game players, how some of the pitfalls that they had, how they overcame those pitfalls, and how they were able to be where they are now, as well as, have some lessons of, look, I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known that. And those are going to be really the main takeaways from those. And as you guys know, we try to keep our episodes short. So we're going to try to do short segments with those people. They're going to come, and then hopefully you guys can learn, and on top of that, be entertained and educated at the same time.
And Nefi and I are also going to try and hone our skills as interviewers instead of interrogators.
Yeah.
Because most of our job is cross-examining people, we're going to do our best to ask questions that are super friendly and easy.
And open-ended, right?
And open-ended, yeah, hopefully. The other thing that I think is really cool is that if you're listening to this podcast and you're a lawyer that wants to get into esports, or you're an esports lawyer, you probably know this, but if you're someone that's not a lawyer that wants to get into the industry, you have pretty much two ways you can do it. You can either be really good at an established esports title, or you can do one of the other hundreds of jobs there is within the esports industry, right? Within the esports industry itself, probably 5 to 10% of the jobs involve actually playing the game. The rest of everything else that you can do to be involved in the industry is things like working on events, working on finances, working on partnerships, all these things that you can do to be around this really, really cool movement that's happening within esports. And so we'd like to give you some exposure to what some of those people do, so you have an idea of, being a player is hard, and being a professional player is even harder in anything. But you can still get into the industry of esports and still be around it and still love it, even if you're not sitting down playing the game 12 hours a day.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to bring some of those perspectives as well. And we think it's really important for us. And I think we have the freedom to do that,
right,
because we're a niche podcast, bootstrapping this thing ourselves.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I really want to give those people a voice, because again, what they do is hyper important. And without those other 90%, you don't get the product that you want on stream or in person.
Absolutely. So with that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in. We're, again, now that we've started this new software, which we like very much, believe it or not, we've recorded a few episodes in the past. Audio wasn't up to par, and so we have not released those episodes. So we apologize for the delay.
We're so mad.
Yeah, but
3 or 4 hours of content just got destroyed.
Yeah, but we're going to try to be more diligent. We have we figured out a way to make this easier and more accessible for us. Jake doesn't have to come to my house, to my studio, to record these anymore. He can do it from the comfort of his home with his cool wood backdrop in the back. If you can't see it, he was wearing a flannel the other day, and I was giving him a hard time because he looked like a lumberjack. But make sure you guys,
I'm getting the flannel back on.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow us on all of our socials on Twitter, Instagram. We just started a new TikTok. We're gonna start updating our YouTube channel. We're gonna start putting up our videos on YouTube. That's one of the big things that I have a goal to work on, and it hasn't been done, and that's 100% my fault. Since I'm kind of the tech guy here, the tech guy not by trade and not by choice, more of it's I've got all the software, and so it falls on me, and I take full responsibility for that. But
Nefi also has a really cool PC because he's a PC gamer.
I'm a PC gamer now, baby. But
I'm sitting here with the Xbox and PS5 and
I still have it all, but I'm a true gamer now, and when I built my PC. But anyways, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to release some very exciting episodes, one relating to Dr. Disrespect, another one about venues, and we're going to release some of our more coveted episodes discussing contracts, discussing other things that esport guys probably really want to hear and want to learn about more. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, and we will see you guys on the next episode.
See you next time.